Vani,
I can chill.
the success of Hira Mandi just proves that audience tastes are changing, especially with the advent of with the massive growth of streaming or OTT, if you want to call it, during the pandemic. So, can you just walk us through how the audience tastes are changing?
The audience taste is changing in any way because very few Sheilas are becoming Jawan and very few Munnis are becoming Badnaam. Prasoonji is sitting here and I also sit on the Central Board of Film Certification. And I think let's start from the fact that we are finally shedding the whole adage of objectification of women. The hourglass figure of the heroine drenched in rain and the babe in the woods, being rescued by the hero and 35 gun-toting goons are just, nudged away by him is all shedding off. No, to make it more real, the pandemic was very perilous for us societally, socially, emotionally. But the pandemic did bring in those narratives which were real closer to us. We were all sitting in a box. We were sitting at home in a room, lot of youngsters with disdain, with so many adults hovering around them. But yet, this whole explosion of content which happened at that time. Nawaz was here before, all of us this morning. Sacred Games, which was the first content from India to go global. 190 countries watched it at the same time. And of course, we are here sitting with Aditi and Hira Mandi being the most talked about content right now. I think the whole concept of the unreal suddenly became real. Also remember that we've mostly, and it's not just the Indian film industry, I have a lot of problem with the word Bollywood. It's a cheap, poor cousin of Hollywood, and we are an Indian film industry with so many languages and so much nuance and so much, content which gets created. Aditi was just talking about how emotion doesn't require a language. Storytelling is not about which languages it's spoken about. So having said that, we started looking at life around us in this perilous time, and it democratized content. It democratized the way we were consuming stories. Similarly, when we were consuming them, we were also reflecting them. And that amazing sort of jugalbandi of content being viewed and then being reflected back became the new normal. So now our stories are not that beautiful. They are uglier in context. And sorry for this disdainful word. By ugly, I do not mean at all the judgment of what's beautiful and what's not. But the fact that they became real. We started looking at life with conflicts and complexes and instinctive realities which are probably erroneous, but we are not scared to talk about them anymore.
And that brings us neatly to Jani. Now, we spoke about, we have spoken about the trends of changing tastes, and we have spoken about something like Hira Mandi going global. Now, Jani has worked in the past or continues to work with people like Cary Fukunaga and Guy Ritchie and, very household filmmakers or household names. But she's part of a group that is also going to embark on a venture that takes Indian content global or Indian talent global and bringing global talent to India. So, Jani, can you demystify what I just said?
Yeah, I think you just said everything. You just did my job for me. I can go now. Well, first of all, it's really wonderful to be here. Vani, thank you for bringing me on with you. My heritage is working primarily with feature film directors and commercial directors, mostly in the advertising space. But the company that I run now is also in the scripted space and the factual space. And I spent a lot of time in India as a child. And I'm a devout Hindu, so I feel, even though I am biologically half Korean, I actually feel like I'm totally Indian in my heart. So I have a partnership with Sajjan Raj Kurup, who owns and runs Creative Land Studios in Asia and the Creative Land Advertising Agency. And when we first met, we completely connected because we realized that actually what the world deserves are human stories that come out of the Indian cultural heritage to go to the West, and also for Western creative talent, whether that be behind screen or in front of screen, to bring that into the Indian market. I think we all owe it to our own selves to expand beyond just the silos and the boxes that we have oftentimes historically lived within. So one of my oldest, dearest friends is a man named David Unger, who's a brilliant Hollywood manager. And because of my relationship with Raj, David has now opened up AIG. They've done a joint venture in India with the full focus of bringing Western talent into the Indian market, and very importantly, bringing Indian talent to the West. And I would say, I'm sure there's many creative people in this room, and producers or writers, and incredible writers actually in this room. And actually, Amish, your books have done so much for exporting out our heritage to the West. I would say, look at every single thing that comes to you as an opportunity. And that's what I have spent my career doing, is seeking opportunities to tell stories beyond just how we would normally see them, is to think not traditionally and to give talent the opportunity to expand even their own horizons.
And for those who are not aware, AIG is one of Hollywood's largest talent management agencies. And we have someone in the room here who's actually worked with CAA and has an outfit called Dream Bay, who was in one of the morning sessions, who is also doing quite similar things to what Jani is doing.
Yeah.
So I bring it back to Aditi. So Aditi, now Hira Mandi has made you like more of a global figure than you already are, right? And so when if someone like AIG or Dream Bay or someone comes to you and says, here you are, let's make you a star in the West and let's get you better work in India, what are you going to tell them?
I would jump. Not because I think that's better, or because, as you rightly said, it's an opportunity to live another life, to have another experience, to work with different kinds of people who tell different stories, because every creative mind is a different mind. And to to be the muse of a creative mind, and somebody especially who sort of challenges you or takes you on a particular, that's the fuel, right? At least for me, that's what it is. And that kind of artistic journey is very exciting. And when you get that much diversity, I would jump at it, 100%. I wouldn't think twice about it. I think I said that before you said, and like, because if somebody from Spain calls me, a German director, and I have learned, I don't know too many South Indian languages, even though I'm South Indian. I'm very sorry about this, but I will learn, like when Mani sir gave me his script, and it was just 2 people. I learned my dialogues literally, like he used to joke and he say, you wake her up in the middle of the night and say, scene number 42. And she'll go, blah, 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 and she'll say the whole scene. So, and that's what I want to do, because I learn it, and I would go to set so that I can be directed by the person, so that I can go into that world and I can feel whatever it is emotionally that I'm being made to sort of, what I'm being given to do. 100%. I mean, I wouldn't even think twice about it.
And staying with the theme of, changing tastes again. So it's a question for all 3 of you, starting with you, Vani. Now, from a theatrical business point of view, especially in India, tastes have changed so much so that, post-pandemic last year, there was an explosion of the top 10 movies accounted for 70-80% of the box office. This year, because everyone wanted to go back into the cinemas, this year, the big hits are the medium to low budget films that are high on concept and story, and people don't seem to care about the star power anymore. So why is this happening, and will it continue? And same thing with you, Jani, can you give us the Hollywood perspective, and also Aditi, where you come at it from an actor's point of view? Starting with you.
We've suffered with a bit of a complex that we find validation for our own work and our own content outside in the Western world. When we get an Oscar, we suddenly start talking about shorts and documentaries. When we get validation, at an Emmy or a BAFTA, I'm not rubbishing the fact that these awards and these accolades mean something. But the most important thing to understand, and I'm going back to the session that we had in the morning where Prasunji, Amish and Sanjeev were there, I think this is the time we should be retelling our epics. Whatever is called taste, it's not haldi and churan, na? The taste is also the way we are actually the original immersive storytelling experience of the world. Sorry, I'm going to say it loudly.
We also have the original superheroes. We've grown up listening to superhero
When
stories.
you look at the Ramayana and when you look at the Mahabharata, you see pure immersion, period. It's a tale within a tale within a tale, and we're suddenly talking about AI. Yes, we are algorithm driven, but is algorithm only a sort of data that you see on a screen? It's emotive realities. And retelling the epics is what we should be doing. Why are we not worried about how my daughter, who's 6-year-old, when she turns 16 or this journey of the next decade, will she know anything about who our great epics were? What the storytelling was like? Are we not worried about the fact, somebody said it yesterday, you know, Aditi, it's very interesting. Somebody said, while we were at the Taj, at the forum at the Taj, Manoj is sitting right there, somebody said, you know, my 14-year-old turned around and said, Papa, who was Arjun? I actually collapsed when I heard that. So I think we have to look at the strong realities of who we are. We are finally looking within. RRR got an Oscar, brilliant, but also look at the narrative of the film. It connected to exactly the epic storytelling that we all belong to, which is the big tale of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So I think it's also upon us in Jani, it's a challenge which can be an opportunity for producers like us.
Yeah.
If we start looking at what the spiritual realities of our homeland is, how every nook and corner of our country is a story, and this land of Kathavachaks that we are, I think we just have to reclaim that. That's it.
So essentially what you're saying is we already have our Avengers universe. Now we just need to look within. Yeah.
We have all the superheroes.
Yeah, and there's your writer.
Yeah. So very quickly, Jani, in the West, it's a reverse, right?
I mean, I think the challenge right now is that so many studios are risk averse, right? And so if it isn't already an existing IP that brings global audiences to a cinema,
Bad Boys 4.
yeah, then it's very difficult to get your project greenlit. So it is an incredibly challenging and difficult time for film producers. And I think we have to pose a challenge to ourselves, which is make films that are going to create a positive social impact in terms of its messaging, which of course the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita all do. If we can bring all the cultural heritage of India and the storytelling that's there and bring that to the West, then you would have made a difference, because you're bringing to life our heritage, but also you're telling stories that will create a moral and a social shift in society, which really the world needs right now. It's a mess. And I think a lot of the mess is because we're all watching cinemas that are not healthy for the human mind.
Yeah.
And we have to create content that is going to shift how we all feel and how we all relate to each other. I think that's critical.
And Aditi, are you signing such content?
You know, I haven't as yet, but I, in fact, when I came to Bombay, this was 2010-11, and when I used to look at all the work that was happening, and I'll go back to my own background of, you know, the classical art forms, etc., and growing up with these stories. My grandmother, she wrote for children, and she wrote a lot of these stories. And, you know, she used to write it in a way that they were almost like your friends. So they weren't deified, and they weren't sort of distant, godlike creatures. They were somebody you could connect to. And that's why I connected to them as a child. And I always wondered why we don't tell indigenous stories. It's stories that are ours. And also I so agree with you, whether it's our craft, whether it's our handlooms, whether it's our heritage, whether it's our history, whether it's our art forms. We always, yoga, anything, the haldi, we always wait for the outside world or the powers that be to say this is wonderful, for us to realize, oh my God, it is wonderful. Why don't we have pride in who we are? Why don't we have pride in what we are, in the power that we are, and in the diversity that we are? And this is for generations. We've had it within us, and we should celebrate it every single day with our stories, with our incredible talent. But I feel, as an actor, I will say this too, that I feel that my generation and the others, I feel somewhere we also need to connect to us, who we are as Indians. And a lot of us don't. A lot of us don't even know Kumar Gandharv. I mean, we don't know classical musicians, we don't know dancers, we don't know artists, we don't know what, what mango haldi is. Till somebody will say this is the new fad, and then we'll be like, oh, this is great. So I feel like the onus is also upon us to be proud of who we are, intrinsically who we are, and celebrate it, And I think that's when actually it'll all kind of fall into place.
Sadly, that's all we have time for today. But on that note, we must rally behind Amish on his clarion call for... So I was just going to say that the day is not far when we may get a triangular flag, as you were saying earlier.
Yes.